went on my way into the so-called cotton states, within which I traveled over first and last at least 3,000 miles of roads from which not a cotton plant was to be seen, and the people living by the side of which certainly had not been made rich by cotton or anything else. And for every mile of road upon which I saw any evidence of cotton production, I am sure that I saw 100 of forest or wasteland, with only now and then an acre or two of poor corn half smothered in weeds. For every rich man's house, I am sure that I passed a dozen shabby and half-furnished cottages, and at least 100 cabins, mere hovels such as none but a poor farmer would house his cattle in at the north. And I think that for every man of refinement and education with whom I came in contact, there were a score or two superior only in the virtue of silence, and in the manner of self-complacency, to the sort of people we should expect to find paying a large price for a place from which a sight could be got at a gallows on any execution day at the north, and a much larger number of what poor men at the north would themselves describe as poor men. Not that they were destitute of certain things which are cheap at the south, fuel for instance, but that they were almost wholly destitute of things the possession of which at the north would indicate that a man had begun to accumulate capital. More destitute of these, on an average, than our day laborers. In short, except in certain limited districts, mere streaks by the side of rivers, and in a few isolated spots of especially favored soil away from these, I found the same state of things which I had seen in Virginia, but in a more aggravated form. At least 500 white men told me something of their lives and fortunes across their own tables, and with the means of measuring the weight of them words before my eyes. And I know that white men seldom want an abundance of coarse food in the cotton states. The proportion of the free white men who live as well in any respect as our working classes at the north, on an average, is small. And the citizens of the cotton states as a whole are poor. They work little, and that little badly. They earn little, they sell little, they buy little, and they have little, very little, of the common comforts and consolations of civilized life. Their destitution is not material only, it is intellectual and it is moral. I know not what virtues they have that rude men everywhere have not, but those which are commonly attributed to them I am sure that they lack. They are not generous or hospitable, and to be plain, I must say that their talk is not the talk of even courageous men elsewhere. They boast and lack self-restraint, yet when not excited are habitually reserved and guarded in expressions of opinion very much like cowardly men everywhere. But much cotton is produced in the cotton states, and only by the labor of somebody. Much cotton is sold, and somebody must pay for it. There are rich people, there are good markets, there is hospitality, refinement, virtue, courage, and urbanity at the South. All this is proverbially true. Who produces the cotton? Who is paid for it? Where are and who are the rich and gentle people? I can answer in part at least. I have been on plantations on the Mississippi, the Red River, and the Brazos Bottoms, whereupon I was assured that 10 bales of cotton to each average prime field hand had been raised. The soil was a perfect garden mold, well drained and guarded by levees against the floods. It was admirably tilled. I have seen but few northern farms so well tilled. The laborers were to a large degree tall, slender, sinewy young men who worked from dawn to dusk, not with spirit but with steadiness and constancy. They had good tools, their rations of bacon and corn were brought to them in the field and eaten with efficient dispatch between the cotton plants. They had the best sort of gins and presses, so situated that from cotton bales could be rolled in 5 minutes the steamboats, bound direct to the ports on the Gulf. They were superintended by skillful and vigilant overseers. These plantations were all large, so large as to yet contain much fresh land, ready to be worked as soon as the cultivated fields gave out in fertility. It was true that 10 bales of cotton to the hand had been raised on them, then their net profit for the year had been not less than $250 for each hand employed. Even at 7 bales to the hand, the profits of cotton planting are enormous. Men who have plantations producing at this rate can well afford to buy fresh hands at $1,400 a head. They can even afford to employ such hands for a year or two in clearing land, ditching, levying, fencing, and other preparatory work, buying, meantime, all the corn and bacon they need, and getting the best kind of tools and cattle, and paying 15% per annum interest on all the capital required for this, as many of them do. All this can be well afforded to establish new plantations favorably situated on fresh soil, if there is a reasonable profitability that they can after all be made to produce half a dozen 7-bale crops. And a great many large plantations do produce 7 bales to the hand for years in succession. A great many more produce 7 bales occasionally. A few produce 10 bales occasionally, though by no means as often as is reported. Now, it is not at a Roman lottery alone that one may see it, but all over the world, where a few very large prizes are promised and many very small ones, and the number of tickets is limited. They are always speculated on, and men will buy them at third and fourth hand prices, which it is useless to demonstrate to them must be extravagant. They go to the Jews and pledge the clothes on their back to get another biachi to invest. They beggar themselves, they ruin their families, they risk damnation in their passionate eagerness to have a chance, when they know perfectly well that the average of chances is not worth a tithe of what they must pay for it. The area of land on which cotton may be raised with profit is practically limitless. It is cheap, even the best land is cheap, but to the large planter it is much more valuable when held in large parcels for obvious reasons than when in small. Consequently, the best land can hardly be obtained in small tracts or without the use of considerable capital. But there are millions of acres of land yet untouched, which, if levied and drained and fenced and well cultivated, might be able to produce what, with good luck, 7 or more bales to the hand. It would cost comparatively little to accomplish it. One lucky crop could repay all the outlay for land and improvements. If it were not for the hands, the supply of hands is limited. It does not increase in the ratio of the increase of the cotton demand. If cotton should double in price next year or become worth its weight in gold, the number of Negroes in the United States would not increase 4%, unless the African slave trade were re-established. Now step onto a dealer's jail in Memphis, Montgomery, Vicksburg, or New Orleans, and you will hear the Mazzano of the Cotton Lottery crying his tickets in this way: "There's a cotton African-American for you, genuine. Look at his toes, look at his fingers. There's a pair of legs for you. If you have got the right style and the right sort of overseer, buy him and put your trust in Providence. He's just as good for 10 bales as I am for a julep at 11 o'clock. And this is just as true as that any named horse is sure to win the Derby. And so the price of good laborers is constantly gambled up to a point where, if they produce 10 bales to the hand, the purchaser will be as fortunate as he who draws the high prize of the lottery. Where, if they produce 7 bales to the hand, he will still be in luck. Where, if rot, or worm, or floods, or untimely rains, or frost occur, reducing the crop to 1 or 2 bales to the hand, as is often the case, the purchaser will have drawn a blank.